So welcome to the Burn Up Podcast. I'm excited to have Spencer Rogich with me today. You might know him on social media as Inked Era. This is actually my first time meeting Spencer, and I've been inspired by your authenticity, you sharing your journey. He's a very talented tattoo artist, has several 100,000 followers on social. And, one of the things I want to jump into the very beginning, as we get started on this is the power of authenticity, right? I mean, you put yourself out there, you share it all, and you've had a wild ride. And I connect with it, right?
Yeah.
Especially, you've been through a lot of shit. I've been through a lot of shit. We all have to a degree, but to me, I'm inspired by those that are willing and open and to be vulnerable, to share all sides of it. And one of the things that's, when I messaged you on Instagram to have you come in, I told, I think you said this, like, people think I'm crazy, having this full mental breakdown and going through stuff. But I want to start off with there, we'll get into your story, but have you always been really open?
No, I don't think so, man. I think I've been closed off for a long time because, as we were talking about earlier, like what people think of you. So I'm a Cancer, bro. So I wear my heart on my sleeve. And so I think that's also like a reason why I'm also so heavily tattooed is it's almost like this shield for me, right? Like I can't let everybody realize the vulnerability because I've been hurt so many times. And so then I had to take myself out of the equation and I had to be like, okay, like if I'm going through some things, I want people to see all of it, right? Like I think social media for a long time was like, look how cool I am, look at me. And I got caught up in that, you know what I mean? And, but I think there's always been that guiding North Star of like, you have to be able to share. I mean, I would connect with a lot of people like on a one-on-one basis when I was young. And I would always try to like help people. I always wanted to be I wanted to be a juvenile counselor, because I felt like I had some like knowledge, and I don't know where that knowledge has come from. I think it's just something that I was kind of born with, but I feel like I've always had like a want to try to help people, motivate people, and inspire people. And so I feel like when I could actually like show people like my true self, especially on social media, like that was like my journal, right? Like, but I let the world see it. So they saw the highs, the lows, and people were thinking I was bipolar, and it's like, no, I'm not bipolar. I'm just expressing all of myself to you guys. It's not just like this curated message. And so that to me was where my authenticity was able to show through.
Did you, when you first started to really open up, how uncomfortable was that?
Bro, so when I started tattooing roughly about 4 years ago, I would always create like a New Year's resolution for myself. And one thing, we were talking about Sean earlier, but he was just talking about like your brand is your business. And so I wanted to just share everything. And so I created, like, I had to almost do challenges for myself of being like, hey, like just post on your stories, like talking a little bit, like, and it was so uncomfortable for me, bro. And I was saying, like, I was recording myself during COVID, bro. And I was like in my garage and there was, furniture and shit everywhere. Like it was a terrible like setup. I had a terrible phone, and I would just like show people like me working out in the morning and just, trying to like figure out how to make some like movement and momentum. So it's like, there was so much chaos in the world, but in that chaos, I was able to like really challenge myself because I think I had a lot of internal dialogue with myself of like, okay, bro, like if you're going to level up and you want to like stick to this challenge, like you got to figure out ways of being able to challenge yourself. And it was during COVID. So it's like, I'm not even seeing the world, right? So it was me just kind of documenting the journey, and I was just trying to figure out, how to get some eyes on me because I was a fresh tattoo artist, but I wanted people to kind of resonate with what I was going through and try to inspire people. But when I was young, bro, I wanted to be a fitness influencer. So I had like a whole fitness page. So I've been on social media for a minute, and it was always like with fitness, you're into fitness too. But it was like, look how much I can lift, like look how ripped I can be. And so after I like got rid of that, then it's like nobody really cares about that. Like people want to like figure out, and for me, like social media was a way that I was inspired by so many different people, and so I wanted to try to be the change that like really helped me out.
Yeah. Why do you feel that people get triggered or feel like they've got a comment or they say something you don't like? I mean, I find this fascinating as I've continue to lean in and more vulnerable myself online, and I watch others, I'm always inspired by people that show up with their authenticity. But it's, to me, I'm also equally surprised at how triggered people get by it.
Yeah, man, I mean, the old saying goes like hurt people hurt people. And I used to take offense to that, right? And then I came from a place of sympathy. I walked through a meditation at one of Sean's events by Greg, and he basically walks you through this meditation of being able to...
Greg's been, was a guest on my podcast.
Yeah, Greg's dope.
Greg's
I love
awesome.
Greg, yeah. But he did this meditation where it basically puts you in the lens of another person because you're watching your life on a big movie screen. And so I think, some people, they may be triggered because you're doing something that they were never able to do. But I honestly think, man, it's just hurt people. They see you vibrating. I mean, Jordan Peterson talks about it, right? Like the lobster bucket where it's like somebody tries to climb out and they pull him down. And I had to realize, like, I don't think people are doing it necessarily from a bad intent. Like, I think some people are just genuinely wanting to watch you fail. Like, that's just part of it, right? But I think a lot of times it's just... It's pulling things out of people that they're wishing that they could do, or they don't want to see you go to a new level because it's pulling you away from them. Like, it's like you're no longer relatable, and so it could be a scary feeling, especially for people that are close to you. Because in the beginning, bro, like, my supporters were people I didn't even know, and that's the sad, hard truth about it, man. Like, the people who I thought would be for me and support me, they weren't. Like, those weren't the people, and so.
Yeah, I've also found that, not only in social media, just in the world, that, again, in the spirit of taking radical accountability, right, and understand that I'm the common denominator in every aspect of my life. If I have a reaction to anything, let's say you post something that oh my gosh, that doesn't resonate or triggers me or even compels me to make a comment, there's something that you said that frankly resides inside of me. You are a mirror, right? That's reflecting back. It could be an insecurity. It could be again, I'm seeing you show up a certain way. Gosh, I wish I could show up that way. Maybe the message is different, but and even though I'm projecting or pointing a finger at you, the reality is you're just showing me what I'm not.
Exactly.
Or
the shadow side.
Yeah. Or what I want to be. And it's fascinating, just especially, we just came out of an election, just the politics, and there's no middle ground. It's my way or the highway. And people are so triggered constantly by it. And the reality of what I've learned is, like, that trigger is a gift. That trigger is an opportunity for you to look inward. And it's like, hey, it's okay if we don't agree on the same things. We don't have to. In fact, it's better that we don't.
For sure.
But just because I feel one way and you feel another way doesn't make me right or you wrong or vice versa. It's just we have different perspectives. And again, when someone becomes more and more authentic, the more and more authentic I find myself being, I notice that I call people in that are drawn to it and also repel people just as equally. And, you mentioned your Cancer. I'm a Leo, and I've got the ability to walk into a room. I can light it up. I also can suck the energy out of it too. Right. And being kind of aware of that and understanding it's okay that I'm not for everybody.
Right.
Which for me, reference to the beginning, for most of my life, like, what other people thought of me was my worth, how I showed up in the world. And in many ways, in fact, I used to brag about it. I mean, it's embarrassing to admit now, but I used to call myself a chameleon. Because I would show up a certain way with a certain group of people and then a different way with a different people, just trying to placate and please them. And it was exhausting.
Yeah, bro.
Because I didn't feel like I could truly be me. And one of the greatest things about loss or hitting rock bottom or, having an ego death, if you will, is at the end of the day, it's like, I just want to be me.
Yeah.
And again, as I've watched you, and I want to kind of get into this too, is, you've had a wild ride here, even in the last, 12 months.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's jump into that. Like,
yeah,
you've been really open about it and sharing your journey, and you went through a divorce, and then let's just jump into that. Kind of what happened.
Yeah, man. So I did a ceremony, right? Like, I did an ayahuasca journey, and I've been called to that for like a good year and a half. And I was afraid, man. Like, I didn't want to do it because I thought I was gonna shit myself, and so I was like, yeah, I don't want to do it. But it just kept calling to me, and so I kind of figured out, like, I was trying to figure out what my intention was. I talked to Source, and it's like, what do you want to know? And I was like, I was trying to figure out at the time what was going on with my relationship, and the Source just basically asked me, like, what do you want? and I said what I thought I should say. And then I had to really sit with it and resonate, and like, why did that take me so long? Why was that hesitation so long for me to say that? And so after that happened, like I planted my manifestation. 2 days later, you know, things basically ended. And so then it was like, okay, like, is this what you want? And it wasn't so much what I wanted. I think it was like, that was just what like I was just destined for it. I don't know what happened, but I think what happened, and I've done a lot of self-reflection, because I had a beautiful marriage, man. And like, this is getting super vulnerable, you know, kind of putting it out there for the world to see. But I took extreme accountability, and like, man, like I fucked up here, like I wasn't present here, but I was so focused on the next thing that I lost sight of like my actual relationship. You know what I mean? And so I think, you know, energies just started, you know, dissipating, and, you know, I went more down the spiritual path. And so then everything just kind of transpired from there, because then I was like trying to figure out, like, you know, the recalibration after ayahuasca. Like, I didn't know who I was anymore. Like, when I was stripped of my relationship, like, that's who Spencer was. It was like this set of identities that I believed I was. And so after ayahuasca, I didn't really even know who I was anymore. Like, I was, you know, I was probably experiencing like an existential crisis, and I was putting it out for the world to see. I mean, I was talking about I was no longer going to tattoo anymore, and I was like, why did I say that? And I was like thinking that I wanted to be like a fitness influencer, but I was just wanting to try so many different things. And I think when I boil everything back, it was just like, I was just looking to be seen. Like, at the end of the day, like, I think I was trying to be seen, and I was caught up in my own way of like, this is how I feel like I should be seen. But what I was lacking was, I think, my own self-worth and my own self-love. And so then I had to go on a whole journey of that to be able to discover, like, okay, who are you when you're alone? Like, what are your thoughts?
Did you find a lot of your, again, as you were building your online presence and growing and all the things, did you find that like you were tying your worth to that? Like, even,
oh, absolutely,
even
bro.
like feeding your
Absolutely.
ego in a way?
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Like, I thought, like, you know, showing the cool lifestyle, doing all the things, like, I was caught up in the race, bro. Like, I was deep in it, right? Like, I had so much ego that was attached to myself, and I didn't realize it because I was trying so hard to, like, I think my soul was fighting for a long time. Like, I was really like into spirituality. I was always giving love. I was always like, you know, trying to put out good vibes. But I was still caught up in my own shit, because I attached my identity and my ego to like this character. And I built this character around social media of what I thought Spencer needed to look like to be seen, to be able to have all the things. And so I feel like that's kind of what.
Yeah. And obviously the validation from followers.
Yeah.
And all that
Yeah.
was feeding that.
Yeah. And I mean, it got to the point where it was like, I was kind of going off the walls, man. Like, I was posting shit that was like, are you okay? Like, people were worried about me, but it was just like, I was basically having to go with my own demons when I was by myself, and I didn't have anyone, man. Like, people weren't reaching out. And so I was like on this like lonely island, because on the outside, like, it seemed like I was good, right? But it's like, when I was going through all that shit, man, like, I was suffering. Like, I was crying all the time, bro. Like, I was just like in the gym. Like, I was just trying to, like, honestly, bro, I was probably trying to avoid it. And then once I like sat with it and actually like figured out what was going on, like, that's when I really started pulling back the layers, and I'm still pulling those layers back.
Did you find that like when people started coming at you, almost, again, that's coming from a place of concern, especially people you know, but did you find in some ways it's almost like, nope, fuck you.
Yep.
I'm going to show you. In
Yep.
fact, you did even
Yep.
more.
Yep.
Just to like, I'm going to prove this.
Yep.
I'm going to do this. And it's interesting. Like, I mean, I've been in those cycles before too. It's like, well, I'm going to show you.
Yep.
Right. But it's coming from it's not coming from a soul.
It's a different energy.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to prove you guys wrong instead of proving myself right. And so it was almost like a lot of my life, bro, I feel like I've been like battling my own thoughts of like, almost like I felt like I was being attacked my whole life. And so I was always like on the defense. Like I shifted that mindset from like, just give love to feeling like I'm attacked. It's like, if I'm attacked, like, cool. Like I've gone through some shit. I got some thick skin. Like, I'm no longer worried about being attacked, and I'm no longer worried about proving anyone wrong. It's just everything that I'm doing is like, I'm trying to prove myself right, and I'm trying to be a vessel for like what God wants me to create, what God wants me to like do, what my message is. And so that's kind of how everything kind of transpired.
Wild. Yeah. And I think, again, you're coming on the other side of this thing, and, that I've shared on this podcast for my own journey. It's, when you're in the gauntlet and things are getting stripped away, whether it's money, fame, relationship, whatever, right? It is such a painful experience.
It's weird, man, because it's like that was my identity.
Oh, yeah.
What do I do now? Like, I wasn't booking tattoos, bro. Like, everything burned to the ground. Like, this is fucking really vulnerable, but like I had like I was trying to buy an energy drink, bro, and I couldn't. And I was used to like just being able to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I had bills stacking up, bro. I had lawyers reaching out to me because I got into like real estate. I tanked a bunch of real estate deals. Like, I totaled my car. Like, everything crashed and burned, bro. And it was like, do I feel any like less about myself because I don't have these things? And I didn't. And I was back to driving my old truck, and I was like, I'm content, bro. Like, I'm fine. I'm happy with myself.
Even when you were losing that stuff, were you okay with yourself?
Yeah, because for me, bro, like, my faith got so big that I was so confident that something better was not better, but just something was about to happen. And I just had to sit in this pain, this darkness, and I had to figure myself out. But I always had faith that things were going to work out, always.
I love that. One of the things that I'm embodying, manifesting today in my life is the concept of the idea of certainty, right? I mean, it's not uncommon that we get attached to outcomes.
Yep.
And what's fascinating, if we're really honest, literally nothing in life has ever turned out for anyone that I know exactly the way we thought it was going to be, right? Whether it's either better, worse, harder, pivots. That's life. But yet we still find ourselves getting, so fixated on it's going to look like this, and this is what's going to happen, and it never actually does. So I'm in a season of like, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know what it looks like. I don't know the path necessarily, but I'm certain, or I'm having certainty that I know that I'm going to accomplish, A, B, or C. I just don't know exactly how, and I'm going to have faith that I'm going to be guided in that direction. And just like you, we all find spirituality in different ways. There's not one right or wrong, but one of the things that, I'm more spiritual now. I mean, it's more important to me than ever.
Yep.
Not tied to religion or anything from that perspective, but understanding that like my creator, God, wants me, and I believe all of us wants us to have it all.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what we're here for, is to experience. I mean, we're creators, right? Like, that's what our purpose is. Like, when I did ayahuasca, bro, like I was talking to this being, and like I downloaded it, and it's like, you came to this is what I believe, and this may be like going down a rabbit hole, but like I believe people came to this world to learn how to create, because I think you transcend from here and you create another world. Like, this is a fragment of your own imagination. Like, the life itself is your own thoughts. Like, you create tomorrow. Tomorrow only exists because you believe it's going to. So you're a creator. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, we are the creators.
Exactly.
And our thoughts dictate, where we go. I mean, you mentioned ayahuasca. I mean, I talk about it very publicly. I'm a huge advocate for plant medicine when someone feels called to it. And
you got to be prepared, man, because that shit will hit you hard.
It will. I mean, you can't run. It takes your subconscious, your conscious, and the divine, whatever God is to you, puts everything in alignment, and then rips away every story we've told ourselves.
Yep.
So if you happen to be out of alignment, out of integrity, you will get checked. If you have stories that you're telling yourself that frankly aren't serving your higher good or the path, you will be redirected. And sometimes sitting with that truth, because you can't run. It's just you and you. There's no running, and can be extremely painful. It can also be extremely rewarding, and there are so many benefits to it. And I truly believe like it starts with taking radical accountability, and also being in a space that it's like, well, I thought I knew, but I didn't know. And then having room to be able to grow, make pivots. I mean, we all make mistakes. We all screw up, but they're all gifts.
Absolutely.
Every one of them are gifts. And people's, just like you, that you put your story out there online. And I believe if you want to have it all, whatever all is to you, like it's going to require that you fuck up. It's going to have mistakes.
You have to, bro.
But that's how you learn. You can't learn otherwise.
That's the thing, man. Like I've been on a personal development journey since I was like 17 years old. Like I did multi-level marketing, got into like Jim Rohn and all that stuff. I had a lot of success in multi-level marketing, but that's what got me into like personal development. And what I realized about personal development is like you can't truly even understand what the book is saying until you go through that shit yourself. Like there's no other greater teacher than like your own mistakes, than you failing. And you know, the personal development I think does a good job at like giving you tools to be able to be equipped for when the shit hits the fan. Because if you're trusting God, you're trusting source, and you're following your calling, there's going to be certain things that align with you, right? Like there's going to be books that show up in your life that are just going to register, and it's like, oh, there was that one line in that book that I remember reading, like this is giving me enough faith and understanding that this is going to work out. Or it's like I need to make a move into this direction, and something comes into your mind. Like there's different keys, if you will, that you go through life that are going to prepare you. Because I believe I have tattooed on my hands Amor Fati, love your fate. Like I think a lot of this stuff is already written in the stars, as long as you're giving one of my favorite things is, you know, faith over fear. Like if you have faith, you're letting your God, you're letting angels, you're letting whatever guide you. When you give into fear, I mean, there's a book, Outwitting the Devil Within by Napoleon Hill. But when you let fear win, that's when you let the devil creep in, because he's blocking you from your highest potential, your greatest good.
Yeah, and I believe in. I also do as well believe in fate. You know, today I believe that, you know, it's already written. Like, you know, some would argue, you know, we mentioned before we started The Matrix, I just rewatched that show, you know, and it's, as you go down the spiritual journey, you start to see like how much of life really is a simulation. So I think it's predetermined that, you know, whether it's in this life or it's other lives, that we will have, we're going to ultimately get it all. Like, I truly believe that. But what will determine the rate at which we get there is our free will. It's a choice. So we still have free will to make decisions. We're responsible for what we do, and we'll continue to be presented with challenges and different things until we learn the lesson. I mean, it's
going to keep showing up over and over again. And if some people get stuck in that, and that's when they get stuck on that karmic loop, and then they have the reincarnation and they keep doing the same thing over and over again. Because I believe if you're, you know, people who are old souls, right? Like I believe I'm an old soul. And so if you're always wanting to progress as a human, why would your soul not want to continue to progress? Like one of my favorite movies, I don't know if you're into Disney at all, but is Soul. And it talks about soul contracts. And so I believe, like, let's say, like, I want to have, like, self-love, right? Like, that's what I came to this world to do. So I have to be presented a lot of different challenges for me to, like, come to understand level 10 self-love. And so that's where I think, like, a lot of things are written in the stars. Until you learn that lesson, you can't progress to the next stage.
Yeah, where it's for our listeners to kind of really connect with it, to understand this concept. Take relationships, for example. If again, you're a common denominator, regardless of what happened, you participated. If you don't take responsibility for the role that you played, right? Many times what will happen is someone will be in a relationship, or they get divorced, break up, whatever. They'll go to another relationship and they'll carry that same shit into the next one. And they'll keep doing it and doing it and doing it until you finally learn, oh my gosh, I'm the common denominator. I need to fix this and change. And once you change, then everything changes. And as is life, if we're constantly triggered
Love that analogy, bro. That's solid.
If we're constantly triggered by the same person for the same thing, I mean, it's the universe's way of saying you need to keep looking at this. And more often than not, we just want to avoid and not deal with it. But when you actually face it and deal with it, then you'll find that challenge or that thing that used to trigger us doesn't trigger us anymore.
Yeah, and then that's when you can start rewriting the script, because it's like, okay, I got rid of this trigger, I got rid of this fear, that no longer defines me. I can now either replace it with something new, because it's like if you get rid of something that you've always been holding on to, it's like, you know, when you're establishing a new habit, it's like, okay, I got rid of something that no longer serves me. What do I want to replace with that? Because you can't just get rid of something and then just have that like empty void. And so when you get rid of something, you can grab something else, and that's when you can start building yourself up, and that's when you can start reaching your higher self, is because you're like, okay, what do I want to apply myself? Like, how do I want to see myself? And then you can just start stacking these wins, and you can just start really building your superhero character.
Yeah. And I also found for me that if I don't have a reaction to something, that I had a reaction to something before, right? That's like, okay, I maybe healed that, or that's not bothering
growth,
me.
Bro. That's growth.
Like, for example, I mentioned this before we started recording. Like, so I used to weigh 350 pounds. And if anyone ever made any comment about weight, I mean, I was insecure. If anybody said, I mean, I'd feel the insecurity. So if someone came up to me today and said, "Hey, you're fat," I just would go in one ear out the other. I'm like, I already know because
Yeah.
I know who I am. I
Right.
know where I'm at. I've done the work. And so it's interesting. Like I've noticed for me, because I feel like I'm pretty self-aware and I want to continue to be more so. But if I have a reaction to anything that anyone says, it's like, oh, what do I need to look at that?
Yep.
What is that person saying that still connects with me? Or if I get offended by somebody saying something, that means I got work to do.
Exactly.
And that person, whoever it is, it could be a random person at the gas station that says something that upsets me. It's like,
That's your teacher, bro.
it
That's
is.
your,
And I think
soul
that was
fam.
like, I don't believe in coincidences. It's like that.
Synchronicities.
Yeah. So that person came into my life at this moment, this specific time, to show me something. And at the end of the day, I want inner peace. I want to feel just so aligned. I want to be confident in my own skin, and I don't want to get triggered by anything. And so when I do get triggered today, it's like, I express gratitude for it. I'm like, okay, it's something to look at. And of course, there are some things like, shit, I'm not ready to look at that.
Right,
I just want to be pissed for a minute or whatever. But nevertheless, like I'm in a season of like, okay, I'm going to pivot, and not necessarily something that this particular person did or didn't do. It's more about what did they say that somehow is still inside of me or I still connect with. And I'm telling you, like the self-confidence and the empowerment, the personal empowerment that comes from just being able to redirect it back to me. Because at the end of the day, I am 100% responsible
Absolutely.
for me. In fact, it's the only thing I have any control over, period. Zero. And when you can relinquish control, and as I said earlier, it's like having certainty, releasing control, and understand the universe is going to guide me where I need to go. Like that is powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful.
It's super powerful, man. And I think too, like understanding like this is one thing that gives me a lot of peace too, is like understanding like if something is meant for me, like it's going to show up. So I no longer have to like work so hard at trying to control what I feel like the desired action has to be to create the result. I just start trusting the synchronicities. There's a book, it's called Synchrodestiny by Deepak Chopra, probably the best book that I've ever read, but it's all about manifesting miracles. And so that is basically what I've done. I've just surrendered completely, and I just trust the synchronicities, and I trust the vibes, and beautiful things unfold. And I was on a big manifestation kick, and I was manifesting some crazy things in my life, but I manifested them to realize that wasn't like what it was. And it was almost like a humbling experience to be like, okay, like you can control the outcome, but if you just surrender, and it's like, bro, like the amount of times that I've cried in gratitude of just like, this is such a beautiful moment. Like I was at karaoke the other day and I was crying, like listening to this girl sing, and I was like, she just had such a beautiful voice, and there was just so much soul behind it. And it's just like, I could never in a million years predicted this. Like I could have never wished for this. And it was such a pure, tender moment of just surrender to just what is, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that you're saying that, because again, we get so caught up in the destination and having this or being that and whatever, and we lose sight of like the journey,
Yeah,
the day
bro.
to day. I actually just posted this yesterday about, inviting everyone, but just reminding myself that it's like, hey, stop and smell the roses and enjoy the wins along the way. And for me, having had so much devastating loss in my life, like I got, following that, I was just like, well, I can't be happy until I have this or have that. And the reality is like, the happiness is found today. It's internal.
100%.
And I can't tell you how many people I know, especially in the business world, that it's like, they're striving, they have this massive exit. And it's like, when I finally have this, then I will be happy. And then I'll be able to do this. And more often than not, they're so disappointed because they finally get it, but there's been so much carnage. They didn't enjoy the ride along the way, that rather than just enjoying the journey and just trust it's all going to work out in the way it is. And what I love what you said, even the karaoke, is it's like, there's so many opportunities on a daily basis to express gratitude, to appreciate where we are, to love all of it, the shit, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yes.
And when you can be in that mindset, that headspace, you just start to appreciate everything some more. And all of a sudden it's like, you might not have what you want or be where you want, but like you're content.
Yes.
You're happy.
Yes.
Peace,
bro. Like peace. Yeah. Yeah, man. One thing for me that like really helped me a lot was, because I've been fighting for presence my whole life, right? Like I got Buddha tattooed on me when I was young. Like that's been like a driving force, is like meditation, just trying to be present, you know what I mean? But I would be so focused on like, I want to be present because it's going to help me get to the next level. Like it was always, I was going to do something because it was going to lead to some result. And what I did when I surrendered, bro, is it just allows me to be present like the majority of my life, because I'm no longer like, my thoughts are no longer racing, because it's like I could manifest some crazy shit, right? But it's like I want to just let things unfold how they're supposed to. And like you said, like be present in the moment, be present with the journey, because it's like I've done so much cool things in my life that I was not present for. Like I was like, I missed that whole chapter of my life. You know what I mean? And it's like, I was always striving to the next level. And I think it really hits different when it's like, you can talk about like, I mean, everybody knows that, right? Like keeping up with the Joneses, doing all the things. And I think a lot of people get caught up, you know, we go back to the Matrix. They're caught up in this Matrix loop, and they may be even the ones saying like, you know, don't chase this. But it's like, they've never even like internalized to see like, what am I actually striving for? Like, what actually am I chasing? And then it's like, once you realize like the words that you say and like you actually sit with it and like let it really like soak into your soul, then you can realize like, oh man, I am on this loop. Like I am on this hamster wheel and I wasn't even aware, because that's what happened to me, bro. Like I had no idea that I was stuck in the Matrix.
Yeah. Well, this is really prevalent with men, because we tie our identity, our worth to financial success, you know, accolades, all the different things, right? And we put all these people on pedestals, right? It's like, oh, he's figured it out. He's made the billions, and the reality is, but like, there's so much more to it than money.
So
right?
much more, bro.
Listen, I've gone, you know, went from making millions to starting over, and you know, and I've tasted the nectar, and I'm just like, the last thing I want to do is drink Kool-Aid the rest of my life.
Yeah, right.
But and so I'm actually grateful that it was taken away, because it made me appreciate it so much
so
more.
much more, bro. Like when you're on that like climb, like when you're on the climb for anything, and it's like you're so appreciative of everything that's like coming your way, and it's like some people are just so caught up in like just continuing to taste that nectar that they're not even appreciating that nectar, because they're looking forward to the next one. Like they're not, until you lose it all, you don't really appreciate it, because things just come in easy, man. And it's like,
and that's the beauty of loss.
Exactly. Yes.
Because again, if you've always had money, you don't know what it's like. You don't necessarily fully, truly appreciate it until you haven't had it.
Well, then you can't relate to somebody that doesn't have money either. And you kind of put yourself on a pedestal, because you're like, oh, like, I don't know how you guys are not, you're not in the same level. But it's like, once you lose it, it gives you so much more compassion and compatibility and relatability to like just another human soul. Like it's like, it no longer matters what you have. None of that matters. What matters is like what kind of energy you put out, like what vibes are you radiating. Like I talk to people all the time that like they're not, you know, by the books, quote unquote successful, and have a conversation, and I'm like, man, you're so in tune. Like you're so, like I can just feel your presence. Like you get it. And it doesn't have to be because you're driving the Lamborghini. Like, and that's what I used to think it was all about. You know, if like you had the Lamborghini, it's like, okay, like you're succeeding or whatever. And it's like, I've come to realize, like I've talked to so many different walks of life, bro. Like that's the coolest thing about tattooing is like, I've talked to so many different people. I've talked to, you know, business owners, you know, people who work at, you know, Walmart. And it's like, there's so much commonalities. And like, when you can like find that and you look away from the outside appearance, the material things, whatever, like for one, nobody gives a shit about that. Like it's, a lot of people have this like own made up thing in their head that like people actually care. But it's like just sitting down with another person and just finding like things to like relate to and just have like a human conversation. Like that's the shit that actually matters.
We all want to feel seen.
Yeah.
And in order to see someone, like truly see someone that, again, you said this earlier, to be able to connect with people is like, I think it's to be able to connect with people empathetically. Mm-hmm. You know, I've said this multiple times. I think what connects us all as humans are the shit, the challenges, the limiting beliefs, and all of that. It's not the awards and the accolades. And it's like, because we all have that. And again, we tell ourselves story. We frame things in such a way that like, oh, this person doesn't know me or that person doesn't know me. But the reality is like when you finally open up and vulnerable, it then gives space for somebody else to be open and vulnerable. It's
that's connection, bro. That's how you have a connection. Like that's literally what I do all day long with, you know, tattooing is it's like, we get into the deep, right? Like, it's like, that's the only, like, I honestly don't even know how to have like a quote unquote normal conversation. Cause it's like, I want to know like the shit that you've gone through. Like, I want to know your story. You know what I mean? Because it's like, that's like, for one, like, I learned so much about that, but that's what creates like true human connection, is that authenticity and that vulnerability, because everybody wants to open up. You know what I mean? They just don't really know how to go about it.
So why do you think it's so hard, especially for men, to open up and be vulnerable?
I mean, I think a lot of it has just been from, you know, what we were pre-programmed for. Like, I think a lot of men, like, their idea of a man, right? Like, my dad, like, he was an awesome dad, but he didn't have a dad for, like, to show him. And so his way of, like, being a father figure was like John Wayne, superhero stuff. So it's like this quote unquote masculine man is like, you know, this alpha. Like, you don't experience really pain. You have to wear this like badge of honor. You have to be the protector. And so it's like getting vulnerable with another man. It's like, whoa, bro, like that's weird. You know what I mean? Like, that's a little soft. I don't know if I don't even know how to express these emotions, because I think a lot of men just suppress that shit. They just keep it down. You know what I mean? Until it blows up, you know? And that's when people are like, man, this person seemed like they had it all together. And then you find out, you know, they take their life. And it's usually like these people who, you know, they're struggling deep down because they have to put on such like a shield.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I rarely saw my dad cry. You know, if there were moments where I was crying, whatever, it'd be like, get a hold of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Same, bro.
Get your emotions in check. It's not okay to be that way.
I was a very emotional kid. I remember being at a funeral, and this isn't knocking my dad or anything. It's just what he knew. But I remember I was crying at a funeral. My dad's like, toughen up. Like, you don't cry. And I was like, why? And I challenged him. I was like, why don't I cry? Like, why do I not? My dad's a cancer too. But It was like he suppressed that for so long. And now it's like a beautiful thing, because I feel like he's kind of learning through me of like that vulnerability, that expression, that nurturing that childlike self. And it's like, my dad was the masculine man too. I mean, he was a cop my whole life. So it was like, he was this tough guy. And it's like, now he's unwinding and unpacking all of that and allowing himself to be vulnerable, because it's like, he was hurting. You know what I mean? He was just teaching me what he knew. Like, he was trying to prepare me for the world.
Yeah. It took me getting divorced to kind of really truly, I mean, I feel like I've always been emotional. You know, you mentioned Disney. I mean, you throw on Tarzan, I'll start sobbing. Like,
yeah,
I
bro.
mean, I feel like I've been pretty in tune with that myself, but actually really show that. And it was interesting. I modeled what my father did with me, even with my own kids. So if my kids were crying, whatever, I'd be like, get a hold of yourself, whatever. And today, I mean, my kids have seen me cry more times than I can count. Yeah. And I also give them space just to feel that. It's like, feel the things, like, feel the emotions. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to not be okay. You know,
absolutely.
And it's been freeing, and it's connected me with, I have 4 sons. It's connected me so deeply with my kids, because like they see also, I mean, I show them all.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't know what to do with it, but it's like, but hopefully what I'm doing is modeling for them that it's okay to be like this. And, you know, don't worry about what society said is okay or not okay. Just like, I want you to be okay. And it's like, I'm proud of that. And vulnerability, again, is a superpower.
Absolutely.
And then also, you know, and again, I think sometimes we can get so caught up in our emotions. I mean, I've done this too, where it's like, I'm vulnerable, I'm open, I'm sharing, but then I'm not doing anything about it. Right. So it still requires like, yeah, be vulnerable, open it. But then if something in your life's not working, then you need to pivot and then back it with action.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
So tell me, like, again, so, you know, went through divorce, you had a relationship here soon. So now you're kind of in the single, like, self-discovery kind of going all in on you. Like, what's coming for Spencer here over the next little while? What do you hope to call into your life? Where do you see yourself going here over the next little while?
Man, so like right now, like that's a really good question, because I've had to like really get deep with myself. I'm like, okay, like I am now like my own free person. I can do whatever I want to do. And like I've always been like passionate about my tattoos, but it's like I'm about to like level the fuck up when it comes to that, because I'm going all in on that. I was doing all the things, but it's like I'm so dialed in and I'm so focused on that. And then it's also creating community. It's like I think there needs to be a place where, especially like these, you know, these overachiever type people who, you know, or people who they just want to get better, right? Like for me, like I went through a lot of like mentors and stuff like that. And it's like, you had to have a ton of money to be able to get into programs. And it's like some people, like for me, like I was like on a big manifestation kick. It's like, okay, like you have your own money beliefs. Like that's not me, but it's like some people haven't even gone through that journey, but they just know that they want to level up, and they don't have like the mindset, like how you were talking about earlier, where you were saying, buy the Burn Up podcast. Like some people don't have, 17K to do that. And so it's like, I want to create like a community. I want to create a space where it's like, the only requirement is like, you just want to level up. Like, you don't have to be already successful in business. You don't have to be, maybe you're just feeling a calling to something else and you don't even know the next steps. And so I want to be able to equip people with the necessary tools and also the necessary people who they have the right intentions. Like, I've been also observant of certain people, and it's like, hey, you have the right intentions. Like, you have a glorious life and you're doing all the things, but like you're also, you have the good intentions. Like, you're truly wanting to help, and like money and stuff is coming with it. But I've had mentors, but I think it was my own shadow self too, right? Like, I was attracted to people with the flashy things. So that's what I wanted. And so I was like, I was swimming in the den of sharks, right? Like, I was in the cage with sharks that everybody was just looking to elevate to the next level, to make the next million. And so like, I want to create a community where the only requirement is you just want to level the fuck up.
Dude, I love that. Isn't it fascinating? It's like when we set our eye on the prize, whatever the prize is. I mean, I remember when I was married, we moved into this monstrosity of a home. It was like this 11,000 square foot, beautiful state. I mean, pinch myself. I remember sitting there, moving there, looking at this house, and I'm like, I can't believe I did this.
Yeah.
I can't believe I did this. And it worked my ass off, didn't have anything. I built this. And it was interesting, as my marriage fell apart, I learned to hate it. I resented all of it.
Yep.
And it's like, I'm grateful that I got to experience and have that, but like, it's so much more than just the stuff, whether it's a Lambo, whether it's a home, whatever it happens to be. And yeah, I want nice things, and it's like that's important to me, and it's a core value of mine. But at the same time, like, my worth's not tied to how big my house is. But again, it's like, and this is what I love about just life. And it's like, we think we want something, we go after it, and then ultimately it's like, oh, this isn't necessarily what I want. I look at, before my investment firm, came crumbling to the ground. I mean, my whole worth, everything was tied to money. So I'm making all this money, but my foundation, frankly, was built on stilts.
Yep.
And my emotional body was a shit show. My physical body was wrecked. Mental, spiritual, all of it. I mean, I had one pillar, and it was money.
Yep.
And no wonder it came crashing down, details aside. And today I'm in a season, it's like, my foundation is so important to me in all those areas. I mean, I value my physical health right now, frankly, more than any amount of money.
Yeah, for sure.
I value my spirituality more than any amount of money. And so I know, as I, am building my new empire and kind of doing all these things, like, my foundation's as strong as it's ever been.
Yep.
And I can honestly say, and I don't think this, it's probably the same for you as well, and many others, because we get this, we in our pursuit of money, let me back up. It's like a massage. So like, for example, if my shoulder hurts, and you're constantly massaging the shoulder, many times, this, if you've got a massage, it's like, there's a pressure point in your back is the reason your shoulder's not, so it's fascinating. It's like, so many guys, even clients I work with, they're like, it's about money, money, money. And it's like, dude, you're going to get more money if you get your ass in shape.
Yep.
You're going to have more money if you, own your shit in your relationship. You're going to have more money, if you work on your spirituality. It's like, you're focused on that, but you're missing the core elements, the core base, the core foundational pieces. And it's wild looking back. It's like, I didn't even get it. And I think men, especially, it's like, they're just missing the boat. So I love that. Like, I'm doing the same thing, is it's like, no, let's help you level up. But sometimes the leveling up, in order to get what you ultimately want, what today might be money, frankly, is you building strong foundational pieces, or maybe even starting with areas that you've completely, set aside or have disregarded as important, because you've got to have it all. If you truly want to have it, I mean, I'm in the season, I'm of the belief that, like, and I'm sharing this and telling people this, is like, I truly believe you can have it all.
Absolutely.
Epic relationship, the money, the body, the spiritual, you can have it all, but you can't get it all unless you actually work on all the pieces.
Yes. I mean, you're a constant, work in progress. Like, that to me is where my happiness comes from. Is, it was the same thing for, it was like, okay, I want to make $1 million. Okay, I have to tie making $1 million to, I have to either do this many tattoos, or I have to charge more, you know what I mean? And it's like, I charged more, and then it got to the point where it's like, okay, now am I just tattooing for money because it's like, I'm wanting to reach this like $1 million a year goal? But then it's like, once you take money aside and it's like, money's completely stripped away from you, I would still be looking to progress in my life, right? Like if there was no monetary value, like I would just want to be doing something for just my human evolution, my growth. And so it's like, once you can kind of find out like, okay, what's the reason behind me wanting to do something? And when you can take money out of the equation, like everything changes and money will just come in.
Yeah. And again, in your own journey and the people that you see and associate with, I mean, what do you think's holding people back from having it all? Or what do you think it is that why people, why not more people have more?
I think it comes down to I think it comes down to self-worth and belief in yourself. Like David Goggins talks about this best, and I think this resonates with me more than really anything else, is you got to just start stacking wins for yourself. Because it's like, you talk about self-confidence, you talk about self-love, and yeah, you should be able to just love yourself, but you're going to have so much more love for yourself when you've kind of been put to the fire and you've like been able to see like what you're actually truly made of. And so I don't think enough people, they put themselves in the fire enough. They don't put themselves out there. A lot of people stop doing different things after school ends. They just get complacent. They're not doing different things. Like I was just doing all sorts of different things because I think there was probably a sense of like me trying to create that like self-validation for myself. But then when I kind of pull that back, then I can also topple that with like hard things that I've overcome. And that gave me a lot of like love and appreciation for myself. Cause it's like, you went through some very hard things. You got super uncomfortable and you came out victorious. And whatever that victory looks like, the victory may just be doing the thing. Like I may have, failed completely and, it was miserable, but like my victory was like me setting out to do something and I actually did it. Like that's why I have so much like respect for people with tattoos, because it's like you had an idea and then you just sent it. Like you just sent it. Like, and sometimes you just have to send it.
Yeah. And this is what I love about fitness and physical health, because you can't buy it.
No,
you can't. That's the thing, is like you can take the pills, you can take the hormones, you can take the steroid. I mean, you can do all that stuff. You can biohack your body. But at the end of the day, it's impossible to get there without doing the work. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I remind myself of, especially because of my own transformation, is it's like it wasn't an overnight thing.
Yep.
It's been consistency. It's been deliberate. It's been discipline. And that concept and that principle, and I always come back to this when I'm feeling impatient or things aren't happening a certain way, I have to remind myself, this is just another workout day. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And I think, again, from my perspective, one of the reasons that people don't reach their full potential of whatever that happens to be is because they're not willing to do the work.
Exactly.
I mean, and it's a choice, and it's not, and once you make the choice, you then have to then back it with action. Otherwise it doesn't happen. No one's coming to save us.
Yep.
And again, it's the fear of jumping into that unknown. I mean, you've heard this quote. I think you've even quoted on social before. It's like, until the pain of where our current circumstances, exceeds the pain of change, or the pain or the uncomfortableness of the unknown, we don't change.
There's no change. Yeah.
You don't change. It's very rare for someone to be like, I'm going to pivot immediately. Usually it takes something, a catalyst, if you will.
Yep.
Right. In order for that to shift. And, when I first got into this working with men, my initial goal and hope was like, I don't want anyone to go as low as I went. And the truth is that's still the case.
Yeah.
But the answers for all of us are in what we're avoiding. It's in the darkness. It's the light is found in the dark. And my goal and hope, and it sounds like you're doing the same thing with what's coming, is like, no, like the pain is unavoidable. But I got you. I got my arm around you. It's like, we're going to go this. You're not alone. I've been there.
Yep.
I get this. Circumstances might be different, but nevertheless, I know the pain. I know the limiting belief, whatever. But it's like, as you lean into that, have faith in doing that. Yeah, you might get beat up a little bit. You might get bloodied. You might get knocked out, but you're going to be okay. And in fact, everything you want is on the other side of that.
Absolutely.
And most people, unfortunately, are too afraid of that. And the sad thing about that is they live a life constantly feeling like they're not enough, and I could do more, but they're not willing to do so. So I always tell people, I'm like, then you need to get so resolute that you're totally okay with truly being okay with wherever you are, whatever that is, or do something about it. Otherwise, it's just mental masturbation, and you're just hurting yourself by constantly feeling you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough, right?
Yep.
So I'm inspired by what you've done, and like all this shit, like you being as open about it. Because I mean, there's been stuff that I'm like, oh goddamn, like I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's inspiring. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel the same way. But do I have the balls to actually go online and say that? And the more and more I do that, again, you're gonna have people that point a finger or like, I can't believe that, or say this or that. But the reality is, like, my belief is they just don't have their own courage, the ability to step into that fire. And, you know, my tagline is freedom's in the fire. I mean, dude, you're stepping into it. And I know it's uncomfortable AF, but you also know that you're refined through it. The fire is the refinement. It is a gift.
Yeah. Well, I think you could even pull it back another layer deeper, right? Like, I think where a lot of people are missing the mark is like, they're afraid to do the work because they don't have enough like self-love for themselves. Like, me doing the work is me loving myself, because I'm trying to create the version of myself that is going to reach my greatest potential. And that to me is like the best form of like self-love that I can give to myself is, you know, being mentally strong, being physically fit, being emotionally well. Like, if I'm doing all the things every single day that I know that I need to do, it's going to be hard. Yeah. But it's like, that's giving love to myself. Like, that's me taking care of myself, because for one, it's going to propel me to the next level. But for two, it's like self-care, right? Like, if you're putting in the work, you're doing the things, like, you're showing yourself that you care about yourself.
Yeah, 100%. Again, it's the little things. It's micro changes lead to macro. It's the ripple effect. And again, I said, this is part of the same post I did yesterday, was it's setting yourself up for a win. So one of the things that I do today is, like, again, I've got huge goals, long-term, mid-term, short-term, but it's like, but I break it down to like, what am I going to do today?
Right.
Because because again, you get out this huge goal that feels out of reach sometimes. Like, how the hell am I going to get there? But if you break it down, it's like, what can I do today?
Yes, exactly.
And how can I start my day? So you know what? I'm going to get in the cold plunge. I'm going to work. And I do this. So all of a sudden I'm knocking wins off, and those wins, I set out a goal, accomplishment fuels my internal confidence. I'm self-fueling, if you will.
Yes.
Because you know this, motivation's fleeting.
Yes.
But the discipline, all of a sudden you start chipping away at this, and before you know it, it's like, fuck, look what I've done.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even realize this. So setting ourselves up on a daily basis, I've found for me has been a game changer. It's like, the night before, what am I going to do today? And then I make sure that I get it done, because I want to go to bed feeling accomplished and knowing that, like, again, I don't know how I'm going to get to where I'm going to get, but I know I'm going to get there. I have certainty. And the only way I have certainty is because I am doing what I need to do today.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like one of the biggest lessons too that I've learned from like tattooing, right? It's like you're doing a big sleeve and it's like you have everything stenciled and you're like, oh fuck, like how am I even going to pull this off? And it's like one little line at a time. You know what I mean? It's like I'm working in, you know, centimeters at a time, and it's like it's going to come together. Just trust the process. And it's like I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to fitness, like let's say you're on a weight loss journey and you're, like you said, you're 350 pounds and you know you've been working out for 3 months, and but the problem is you're so tied to the outcome. You're so tied to like, okay, I need to drop 20 pounds. But what you need to do is you need to learn how to love the process. You need to learn how to love, like, you're not going to become fit until you love like taking care of yourself. Until you love taking care of yourself and you enjoy that journey, it's always going to be a struggle. It's always going to be a challenge because you're so tied to the outcome.
Yeah, exactly. So Spencer, you get on social Inked Era.
Yep.
Like, and again, if you're not following him, you need to, like, you get it all. Like,
Thank you,
and
brother.
again, it's the vulnerability, the authenticity. You know, you're extremely talented tattoo artist. How, and I noticed like you're usually booked out quite a ways in advance. How does someone that's interested in coming to get tattoo work, like, what's where do they find you from that?
Yeah. So on my social media, I'm working on, like, one of my guys putting together a website for me right now. But I've honestly, bro, like I used to not really like people DMing me because it gets so overflown. Well, like lately I've just been, you know, talking to people through messages, because a lot of tattoo artists too, it's like, you know, a lot of people say like, I don't want to know the backstory behind it. It's so draining. And it's like, I understand where some tattoo artists are talking about that, but it's like, to me, like tattooing is like such a spiritual experience. And so I want to know the meaning behind the tattoo. It's like, it's not just like put this art on me. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I want to tell your story. Like, I want to know what you're wanting to tell with this. And it's like, I want to take your ideas and then I want to incorporate your story with it. So I can tell you what, like my tattoos are very, very intentional. Like I do intuitive tattoos. And so they're very, very intentional. And so I've actually liked like just being able to have like some conversations with people, letting people know what my prices are. Cause my prices are high. Like, I mean, like they're definitely not on the low end. But I want people to understand like what they're actually getting. And so I've just been honestly liking people to just DM me. I'll eventually get to the point where it's just like, do it through the website. But like right now, like I'm honestly just vibing with just talking to people.
Yeah. And I just want to echo, not having personally sat, which I will sat with you. Well, after this podcast, I want to talk to you about one, but yeah, it's funny when I got my very first one, which was a tramp stamp back in the day, and I remember the guy, he's this big, like Hispanic guy. And he goes, once you get one tattoo, you'll always
game over.
I would just try to do a Mexican accent. Sound more, Indian, or Middle Eastern anyway, but it's like, that was just to get it, and now like they're so sacred to me, and I love to hear people's stories around it. And having had just a tattoo versus like a very intentional sacred experience, it's a night and day experience. And to me, it is worth its weight in gold. I mean, the talent's there. I mean, again, go online, you can see all the great work he does. But when you create that with this cultivated experience with it, I mean, it makes the entire thing just, it's next level. It's so much more than just ink. I mean, it's art. It's a message. It's something you want to call into your life. I mean, I'm obsessed with it. I'll continue to get them when I feel called to it. And, I just want to echo, I mean, you've done phenomenal work. I mean, that's the original reason I started following you. And it's like, but then I'm like, oh, this guy's like, he's open. So, dude, Spencer, you and I could talk for hours hours, man. I just, again, I honor the journey you're on. Like, I look up to you.
Thank you, bro.
Especially the vulnerability in sharing all the shit, right? It's not easy to be, I made all this money. I started over. I didn't have money for an energy. I mean, I trust you. I've been there, and it's humbling, but it is a gift. And I think if my biggest hope and for anyone listening to this takeaway is like, the gift is in the pain. The gift is in the hard, the loss, the heartbreak, the failures.
It's in everything, man.
It's all.
Everything is a gift.
It
like
is.
This moment is a gift. Like, I just went through, and I don't know if you were trying to wrap it up, but I want to kind of end with this. So I went last week just kind of on a whim. This dude, he reached out to me and wanted to meet up, and it was like, usually when people wanted to meet up, it was talk about business. And I usually don't really like entertain those. And I was like, you know what? I'm in this new chapter. Like, I'm just going to go with the flow. Met up with him and we were just vibing, right? Like we were just talking about all things like similar to like this conversation. And then he's like, I'm going to Vegas, for a race. And I was like, I'm down to go to Vegas. Like I need a trip. And I went out there and he did a 100-mile ultra marathon right outside.
Yeah, you just posted about this on social. Yeah,
he just did a 100-mile race, and it was just like seeing like all walks of life, bro. Like 60-year-olds, like people with hurt backs, and it was I can't even remember where I was going with this, but like as far as like what it came down to for me, like I had the biggest like that was probably one of the biggest blessings was I was able to serve these guys. Like I was up for 50 hours. Like these guys ran, like my buddy, he did just under 30 hours.
Yeah, that's
ran
impressive.
For 30 hours straight, and it was just like the human mind can take you so much further than what the body, because I mean he wanted to shut down at mile 80. I watched a dude shut down at mile 80, and it's like, you just ran 80 miles. You've been running up for over 24 hours. Like you and he just did, like his mind just wouldn't let him go the next 20. And it's like, my buddy wanted to quit, but he wanted to keep going because it's like he had his support system there. And then he just turned up to God, and is like, he said he just got, extra wind to be able to complete the last 20. But that was such a powerful experience for me to witness, because it was just like, there was no glory behind it either. It was like, these people whatever it is their motivating factor, whether they have demons they're battling or they just want to prove to themselves they can do it. But it's like, there was nothing at the end of there. Like there's no flashing lights. Like most people probably don't even know what they experience. Like just humble people that are just doing their thing.
Yeah, no, I love that, dude. No, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for this message. Again, you can find Spencer on Inked Era on social. Give him a follow. And again, thank you for joining us on the Burn Up podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, bro.